Welcome back, Math 20-3. Today's lesson is beginning of chapter 6.4, which is about personal loan and lines of credit and overdraft. As you may notice, there's some terminologies in here, and of course, we're gonna go through each of those important terms first. As you may notice, I believe out of those three, people know loans first or heard about that as the most is because loan means you borrow money. At times you may want to or have to borrow money from a lending institution such as a bank or a credit union to sometimes make a larger purchase, or sometimes you need to pay back for tuition, something like that. So loan is a fixed amount of money that you borrow all at once. And interest is calculated basically from the day you receive until the final day of the loan. So it's kind of like our simple interest calculation, if you will. And when you take out the loan, you generally sign the agreement of how much you will pay for a certain length of a time, like within 5 years, 10 years, those kind of thing. And that time is known as a amortization period. So usually agree with a term of payment, and that can be i.e. 10 years, 5 years, etc., etc. And this term of repayment, if you will, that's known as amortization period. It's basically time for payback. Now, as you may notice, for example, I cannot just go into any of a bank or any type of money borrowing institution and then just say, you know what, I'd like to borrow like $1 million. Of course, this is such an exaggeration, but let's say even realistic one, like $20,000. Who's gonna give you just directly? I mean, do you know me? So a bank basically have something called line of credit, or this is one of the reasons why you want to have a good credit. A line of credit, which allows you to borrow money as needed up to a certain pre-approved amount. Money up to a So until that pre-approved amount, they don't ask you. Unapproved loan amount that you can draw from your bank with certain interest charges expected, but still the good thing is you can borrow it as whatever that pre-approved amount. Your bank also may provide you what I like to call overdraft protection. So what does that mean? That means, or what does this do for you? It basically allows you to withdraw more money than you have in the bank, and there's often more fee and interest attached with it, and there's some risk, but that's a good program for someone who absolutely need a big cash right now. So how can I say, agreement with a bank that allows you to withdraw more money from an account than you have in it. And there's a limit of how much maximally you can take out, of course. So there are several stuff that you need to understand for this chapter. And sometime you will hear of some places that offer you emergency loan, sometimes known as payday loans. Those are not done by bank, but those are the one where it's generally have higher rates of interest, but they do lend you the money. So there are several stuff that we're going to look for. And if you do not make your loan payment agreement and you're basically say to default, that means you fail to repay a loan, and basically that's where you're gonna get sued, go to jail, those kind of legal action, which is quite tough business because some people think about YOLO life, you only live once and then do all those, but in the end, even if you have a bad credit for once, you will have a tough time getting or being a good client in the financial institution. So have that in your mind. Some extreme legal action is, for example, house is going back to the markets, those kind of thing. Example number 1 on page 315. We're going to do that as a quick example, so get your calculator ready. Richard's car insurance of $1,400 was due in 2 days, and he did not have the cash available. He went to a payday loan store. Oh boy. It's a big loan place. And he had to repay the store $1,635.20 within 14 days. So basically asked for the loan to pay the car insurance, which was $1,400. But when it comes to that amount, seems like he paid, but the interest is quite a lot. It's like $200 and more. But he need to pay within 14 days. So there are several stuff going on, but first thing first. Let's see. What was the daily interest rate for the loan? That's our first question. And second question is, what was the annual interest? So let's do daily interest first, because that was a little easy to do. First thing first, daily interest, in order to find it, we need to know the term. It's basically 14 days, because that's what you need to pay it. Other part, you need to know how much was an interest, which was my total amount, subtract with my principal amount, in this case, which was 1,400, gave you 235.20 was my interest rate. So if you apply this formula into our good old I is equal to PRT, we are trying to find this R. So let's isolate for that R. I over PT multiply by 14 at the bottom, and let's punch those number in using your calculator. You have 0.012 comes out once you do those. If you convert that into percentage, then multiply by 100, then you have about 1.20% per day. That's quite a lot, because that means if it's, let's say if you wait for 100 days, to pay the whole thing back, then it's like 120. So it's a 1.2%. So there will be 120% that's become an interest. Of course, there's a limitation, 14 day. That is when the payday loan was calculated as your daily interest. Now, second question. We are now talking about yearly situation. So interest in a year. If you think about previous questions, 1.20%, you just need to multiply by 365 days. Then what you can do is 1.20 times by 365, then I have 438%. That is how much interest in a year. That is a huge amount. Let's do next example. Example number 2, which is available on page 318. And of course, I'm going to read the question first. Safia borrowed $500 from a payday loan store and agreed to repay it in 30 days at a rate of 1.15% per day. How much will Safia have to repay? So, first thing first, we can list some of the clue easily for this one. Principal amount, so how much we borrow in this case was $500. And payday loan store apparently give 30 days. And the rate, interest rate, seems like 1.15%. Unfortunately, it's per day, so we don't need to change our units for time and rate in this situation. So we can just simply make it into a decimal by divided by 1,000, 0.0115. So then we can just apply our simple, interest ratio calculation. How much will Sofia have to repay? We're going to find out the total amount later, but right now, 500, 0.0115, 30, and I will be equal to all of those combined. So 500 multiplied by 0.0115 multiplied by 30 provides you $172.5, 172.50. Now, know the fact that this is interest. In order to find the total, we gotta find out the interest rate, which I found, plus principal amount, so 500, plus 172.50, easily provide you that 672.50 is how much you need to pay. So long story short, the skill that we have been doing, it's pretty much consistently equal to what we did before. It's exactly same situation. One was going backward, one was going, forward using the formula that we are familiar with. Our last example number 3. This is available on 319. And that's page number, of course. Stanley borrowed $4,500 from his credit union to do some home renovations. The loan has an annual interest rate of 5.75% and an amortization period of 3 years. So how much we have it for loaning. And the next part, it says you will need the personal loan payment calculator on table page 320. Which is a little reference table, I like to say, to do the following question. I don't have a workbook page right now, so I want you to go back and forth. I'm basically using my PDF file online. So The first question is asking what is Stanley's monthly payment. B is calculate the total amount he will pay over 3 years. And C is calculate the finances charge on the loan. So let's talk about A part first. Apparently, when you look at the percentage rate on page 320, there's a rows and column. The row that you see is basically interest rate starting from 3%, 3.25, 3.50, and then it kept going up and up and up. And the next columns are terms in years. So you have 1 year option, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, something like that. And all of those payment is basically interest compounded monthly. So you need to understand that the payment that is involved in here is basically depends on term that you are borrowing the money for. So if I look at the question first of all, the interest rate situation was 5.75% annual rate, and the term was under 3 years. So if I go there, where is it? 5.75 and then term 1, 2, 3. The term in years turned out to be 30.31, and interest rate was, well, basically let's see. Oh, sorry, it wasn't the term. Under that 3-year term, there is my bad, $30.31 is a loan for $1,000 worth of money that we are borrowing. Because when you read the table, it says monthly payment per $1,000 borrowed. So now, here's what we need to do. Let's see. In order to calculate the monthly payment, we have to divide the amount of loan by 1,000 and then multiply by 30. So what I mean by that is this. Let's do a simple ratio. How much did this person Stanley borrow? Stanley borrowed $4,500 basically. Okay? And now the term, we do not know the term. So we're going to put it X. But we know that according to the table, for $1,000 loan, for a 3-year payment with the interest rate that is 5.75%, you have to pay $30.31 per month. So if we do simple, well, multiplication, 1000x is equal to 4,500 multiplied by 30.31. So if I isolate for x, this is a ratio question using, of course, money as a unit. That's what's happening. So that means, again, it's a simple ratio. Divided by 1,000 give me, and I have to round it up because once I write everything, it's 136.395. That means monthly payment should be $136.40. That's what Stanley need to pay monthly fee for 3 years for borrowing $4,500 for his personal project, renovating home. Now let's go to B. Let's see, what does B's asking? B simply ask, oops, I lost the page. This was page 300. There you go. Found it. Calculate the total amount he will pay over 3 years. So let's talk about term first. 3 year. We did monthly payments, so multiply by 12, so that's 36 months. That's our term. We just calculate from a previous answer that Stanley have to pay $136.40 every month. So if I multiply this by 36, so 136.40 multiplied by 36, that gives me that he need to pay 4,910.40 as a net payment. Of course, it has interest rate, which is basically our C. Calculate finance charge. Well, so let's think about it. This is like total, and principal amount was 4,500. So now, if I try to find I, then that's a subtraction of these two. Total minus original amount. 4,910.40 minus 4,500. That basically gives me $410.40, and that is basically our interest amount in this situation. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, basically how you how can I say it? Solve every questions related to loan. You do not necessarily need to deal with questions where it's compound interest. If it's compound interest related, it is quite positive that you will see table like this third example. So your to-do list. On page 317, do odd numbers, which is 1 and 3. And page 318 to 319, I want you to give it a shot for even numbers. That's 2 and 4. And one more, the one with the table. That's page 321, number 1 and 2. That's your to-do list.